There's definitely people that I missed with this. I think the pro wrestling kind of held it back a little bit. The vampire aspect, I think, keeps things popular, but the pro wrestling thing is very niche. Although there are people that are into it, and the people that are into it are really into it, there's a lot of people that just think it's silly. And it is. It absolutely is silly, and that's always the point I make. Pro wrestling is goofy, but it's fun. And that's the idea. It originated in the circus. That should tell you everything you need to know. Hello and welcome to Pesto Comics. This is the episode for September 24th, 2025. The post-mortem for From Parts Unknown number 4, ending my vampire wrestling comic. So if you're not familiar with what we're doing today, the post-mortem is the look back at my Kickstarter campaign. I do this every time I do a Kickstarter campaign. I go back through the whole thing, going real in-depth. I actually got this idea from Tyler James's program called Comics Launch. In there, he teaches you a lot of the things that I use to have successful campaigns, and reviewing what you've done through a postmortem is one of them. I've taken a lot of the ideas that he uses in those postmortems, but I've also adapted some of it for my own uses, as I've done this now 9 times with From Parts Unknown number 4. So today we're going to go through all the funds, the backers, and the emotions that came with launching a campaign. This being my first completed series, I had a lot to learn about what worked, what didn't, and what I can do better next time. I hope that you get a lot out of this as well, whether you're a creator or just curious of how this all works. We're going to go into a lot of detail today, so this video might be just a smidge longer than usual, but it'll be well worth it, I promise you. But before we go too deep into this, I want to share a couple things with you. Number one, I'm doing this as a video. I always have. Even though I'm kind of new to doing videos for all of the posts, I've always done the postmortem as a video because it allows me to go slide by slide and really describe to you what we're looking at. So you will get something out of the audio and you'll definitely get something out of the newsletter, but the video is the best way to really go through these postmortems. Number two, I have an active campaign right now. It's my 10th, with From Parts Unknown number 4 being the 9th. The follow-up was Naked Kaiju Woman number 2. As of this moment, it is the highest funded Pesto Comics campaign to date. We still have some backers to catch up and make it the best backer count we've ever had, making it the best Pesto Comics campaign we've had overall, but we're very close, and if this momentum continues, we'll easily surpass that number. There's just over a week left in the campaign, so if you haven't checked it out yet, please go to Kickstarter, search up Naked Kaiju Woman 2, or you can go to bit.ly/Kaiju Woman 2, and that'll take you right to the page. And one last thing, the second part of my conversation with the graphic novel Apostle is live. You can find that on any podcasting platform you find out there, so I highly recommend you check it out. We go project by project by project and talk about the entire history of Pesto Comics. I haven't done that anywhere before, even on the newsletter, so it's well worth checking out if you want a nice, comprehensive conversation about what goes into making indie comics and all that thing. So if you're enjoying this newsletter, you'll surely enjoy that podcast. And I wouldn't recommend it only for my appearance. The show actually does wonderful deep dives into all of your favorite comics. So I highly recommend, after you've read a comic, go see if their graphic novel Apostle has done a review of it, as they go deep into a page-by-page breakdown of everything about the book. So it's a great postscript to comics you've read. I highly recommend checking it out. In fact, I've already bugged Mark to do a traditional episode one day soon, so hopefully you'll be hearing that from me as well. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the postmortem as we talk funding. So one thing you're going to notice right away is that From Parts Unknown Volume 4 did much better than the previous 3 issues combined. And the reason is pretty obvious. As we got new backers in, they were picking up the entire series. That's obviously going to help when you're looking at funding, as people are buying 4 times as much comic as they would on issue 1. The good news is we had a lot of people coming back that had lapsed on previous campaigns. So the 4th entry was easily the best one of the bunch. We had a really strong start, and then we had the usual spike at the end, so everything was pretty much as expected, and fortunately did much better than the rest of the series, so it made this experience a lot more comfortable than it had been with the previous 3 entries. It came in at the second highest at the time. Of course, Naked Kaiju Woman 2 has changed this metric, but at the time this was number 2 as far as funded campaigns had gone. And it really did feel like a redemption for this series, as if you've seen previous postmortems, which I recommend checking out, you know that around issues 2 and 3, I was getting a little concerned about the popularity of this series. So this kind of vindicated and showed people were interested, but maybe just weren't interested in waiting for the series to come to a conclusion, and they just wanted the whole story in their hands. Being a serialized story made a lot of sense. Especially with indie comics, you don't know how long it's going to take for you to get the ending to a story. So knowing that, yes, this is a full series, if you come in now, you can read it from beginning to end, seemed to get a lot more people on board than you would have seen otherwise. And here's another view of the total per campaign. It's holding its weight. It's doing much better than any of the previous entries, plus much better than any campaign beyond Naked Kaiju Woman. This really did feel like the series was finally finding its audience, which was great because it's the last one. So if we look at the funding totals, the average pledge per day was actually pretty high. Again, not surprising, given a lot of people were picking up the whole series for the first time here. That meant a lot of the backers were just paying much more on average. Even with the digital packages, it was bringing that average up quite a bit. And unfortunately, with all the tariff drama and all the business with shipping from Canada and how challenging they got to become, I am not surprised with how these have flipped. Usually, you would find the main cover of a book being a lot higher on the highest funded pledge levels. However, this time digital ran the table. And then the digital catch-up was number 2 for both categories as well, the main cover coming in at number 3. I've never had the highest funding pledge levels and the popularity of those levels sync up quite like this, but it's unsurprising given all the challenges with shipping nowadays. And we were talking average pledge per backer. So although Naked Kaiju Woman is the highest funded, just because of the very high backer count, the one that used to be the highest pledge per backer was Big Smoke Pulp. That one made a little more sense because the price tag for a 500-page book is just going to be naturally higher. So the average pledge per backer was much higher, and that maintained throughout both Naked Kaiju Woman and the entire series of From Parts Unknown until now. With people picking up the entire series of From Parts Unknown number 4, that ended up taking the title as the highest average pledge per backer. And since we're talking funding, let's look at the cost of making From Parts Unknown number 4. As always, the actual production of the book, which means hiring Daniel for the art and JP for the coloring, is what takes up 85% of the cost. Meaning, if I could learn to draw myself, I could probably save a lot of money. But that said, I think I'll always end up hiring artists because even as I'm learning to draw now, I still have quite a ways to go. So I'll always have great artists working for me, and that's always going to be a big part of the cost. But I think that's what brings the quality of the whole book up there. So well worth doing and well worth the cost. Something that's grown quite a bit now is the shipping. That's now 10% of the costs. That used to be closer to 5 or 6%, and printing would overtake that. However, now shipping has just become so expensive, especially now with getting packages to the US where 80 to 90% of my backers are. Costs for shipping have just gone way through the roof. So it's always going to be a little more of the cost of getting a comic out there. And of course, I always reserve a little bit of money for ads. Now that we've talked about funding, let's talk about something that's even more important, the backers. It tells a little bit of a different story than it did with the funding. Where issue 4 took off like a rocket and never came close to the funding of the previous 3 campaigns, the backers are pretty close. A lot of people were on board for issue 1, and then we had a little bit of drop off between 2 and 3. Fortunately, a lot of the backers that skipped issues 2 or 3 came back for number 4 and picked up the difference. So if you only picked up issue 1, I created a reward for those backers that would be a catch-up of issue 2, 3, and 4. So you're not picking up issue 1 again if you happen to skip subsequent issues. I did get quite a few backers for those tiers, including people who skipped issues 2 and 3, and people who just skipped issue 3. So it ended up working out really well. I highly recommend this strategy for anyone who has a series and has backers that have dropped off over time and wants to try to get them back in the fold. I think it did take away that barrier of the idea that you'd have to rebuy issues that you already bought if you wanted a bundle, or would have to buy them as add-ons, which are always at a little bit of a higher price than the bundle. This kind of brought them in, saying you're going to get the same deal, but you don't have to rebuy those issues. It seemed to work really well. And if we look at the backer count against all Pesto Comics campaigns, you can see that it started stronger than Crazy Latte Thing Called Love, and then around the 3rd day, Crazy Latte Thing Called Love overtook it, and was a little more consistent in collecting backers day after day. So it ended up in 3rd place overall. Again, this changes with Naked Kaiju Woman as it is right now. It's already surpassed all of these. So it was kind of unfortunate that it couldn't maintain the momentum that Crazy Latte Thing did. But at the same time, I'm not entirely surprised, as I was getting a lot of hype from even big-time comics creators for Crazy Latte Thing Called Love. We were talking names from established comic creators that were actually posting tweets and letting people know about this book. So it made it a lot further just based on that, just based on the credibility I was able to siphon off of those creators. I wasn't getting that same buzz from Parts Unknown, but it still did really well, all things considered. And if we look at the total backer counts, this is where I'm probably most proud that we were able to get a lot of returning backers. Yes, we were able to get a lot of new backers as well, which is great, But the fact that the returning backers is so strong in fact that the returning backers was higher than the total number of some campaigns. Just goes to show that people were actually interested in the story. Even though they may have lapsed around issue 2 or 3, they were more than willing to come back to get the conclusion of this story. So I was very happy to see that we were able to get so many backers back in the fold. So when we look at the followers, these are people that don't back right away. They decide to follow the campaign, and then at some point, hopefully, they convert and are able to actually back the campaign. So what was great here is we had the third highest follower rate of all the campaigns overall, of course beaten by both Naked Kaiju Woman and Crazy Latte Thing Called Love, but we had the highest conversion rate overall. Part of that is just math. So of the people following, we got the highest percentage of any campaign. So that really helped get things going. And why I say get things going is this next slide. This is actually a new metric provided by Kickstarter, so I only have it for From Parts Unknown Volume 4. But here you can see who followed the campaign during pre-launch, and then who actually backed it, and who followed the campaign after it launched and backed it. And you can see the disparity between the two. It just goes to show how important pre-launch is. These are going to be your most motivated backers. These are people that are following your campaign nearly sight unseen. They're doing it based on a title and an image most of the time. So the fact that they're interested and they're showing their interest and they want to be notified when it launches so that they can back it, it just goes to show how important that is, and how important it is just to start your pre-launch as soon as you possibly can and start collecting these names so that they know when this project launches, they can back it. It seems like those who follow afterward, when they already have the opportunity to back it, are less likely to jump on after the fact. Followers are still important during the campaign because those people are the ones that get notified with 48 hours and 8 hours left. But you can tell even by the way the backer count goes that the ending is never as strong as the beginning, and this just goes to show exactly why. And if we're looking at where the returning backers are coming from, almost no surprise here. Most of them are coming from Parts Unknown 1, 2, and 3. That's where the majority, percentage-wise, are coming from. However, with 9% of the 630 backers of Naked Kaiju Woman backing this campaign, it made a huge dent, almost equal to that of From Parts Unknown issue 2, and even better than those who read issue 1. So I don't know if that's people who picked up issue 1 as part of a bundle, or were just interested when they saw the launch, but a lot of these backers from Naked Kaiju Woman carried over. And one that's always dear to my heart is those people who've been there from the very beginning. If we look at the multi-return backers, there's still those handful holding strong that have backed 9, 8, 7, 6 of them. So I appreciate those folks that almost every time I have something to put out, they're backing it. It means the world. Although I appreciate that people who have backed 2, 3, and 4, again, those are likely people who are picking up the whole series and have carried through. Your support means the world as well, because the fact that I was able to even continue putting out these series is because of people like you that have been here time and time again, and that I can almost rely on to be there every time I launch something. It's the only reason this is even possible. So whether you've backed just one campaign or all of them, I really appreciate you being here. You'll be getting this in your mailbox very soon if you support at a physical level, and if not, expect the digital copies in your mailbox very, very soon. And if you didn't back at all, that's okay. It's always available as part of bundles with new campaigns. And if you missed From Parts Unknown Volume 4 entirely, you could always pick it up as part of any new campaign, including the current one for Naked Kaiju Woman 2, so feel free to jump in if you're feeling left out. Now we talk about the difference between digital and physical supporters. So there's a trend that happens with every single campaign, that there's always more digital copies distributed than physical comics. This is a bit of a misleading stat, as every tier includes a digital copy. So whether you back a digital tier or a physical tier, you're still getting a digital copy of the comic. So these numbers are always going to be skewed towards digital. That said, it gives you a good sense of just how many copies of the book are out there. To see how many support one over the other, we have this next slide. And here you can see with From Parts Unknown number 4, it's almost an even split, but surprisingly, it leans more physical than digital. This is going against the usual trend, where digital always seems to be a little more popular, especially with me shipping from Canada, things being a little more expensive to get over the border. Yet this time, people really wanted the physical book in their hand, which is great. I'm happy to send them out. As to where we're sending them, I always say majority of my backers tend to be in the United States, and that continues to be true whether it's digital or physical. You can see that 65 of the backers of this campaign, which is about a third of them, are receiving packages in the United States. It's great to see more and more Canadians backing the campaigns, which I always appreciate and makes shipping a little bit easier. But it's great that I'm meeting people out at conventions and those people are choosing to jump on and support. So I appreciate all of you as well. And then, of course, I have to credit JP Jordan for getting his friends involved as we have a good Irish contingent backing this campaign. And I know that JP's one of those Irish folks in there. But the fact that there's even more Irish fans out there, I have to credit JP Jordan for getting the word out on that side of the world. England included, as we're getting some backers from the UK. And then we have folks from all over the world as well, including Indonesia, Germany, New Zealand, and Australia. So it's really cool to see this book making it far and wide. Now let's talk about something that not everyone loves to talk about, which is marketing. So seeing where backers are coming in from is really important. However, I'm not so big on going through and making all of the custom links. You can get really deep and in the details to find out just where everyone's coming from. But given that I'm not so deep into ads, I'm not really that concerned about exactly where everyone's coming from. So I'm only tracking what Kickstarter shows me. The project update emails on their own brought in 7% of the campaign total, which is pretty big considering it was just 2 people that actually backed at that level. So I would imagine that those were backers that did catch-up tiers. Unfortunately, it doesn't show you exactly who backed what based on what referral. So again, the data you're getting from these segments isn't always the most useful. You'll find that Saved Projects was equally as big, but brought in more backers as well. Unfortunately, we trended pretty high in the discovery of the comics category, so people were actually seeking out this book and finding it, which is pretty key. As far as where people were finding this outside of Kickstarter, I don't really have a good sense because we have just direct links. So that could have been any of these tools that it just didn't capture the metadata. I share a lot on socials. Again, that's Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram primarily. So it could have been any of those. It could have been somebody who just had a link from something else. Who knows? But it was just a direct link. And that's 16% of the total amount pledged. So it's really unclear of exactly where these people are coming from. We just know that they had the URL and they were able to paste that into their browser and go direct to the campaign. So not entirely clear where those folks are coming from. And as usual, there's Blue Sky. Surprisingly, Gmail is one of the places that people are getting sent from. I wonder if that came through BackerKit or something like that and it just didn't capture correctly. I'm unclear. And then, of course, Substack, which if you're watching on Substack, thank you guys for using the link there, backing the campaign, and Facebook, which always shocks me because I do almost nothing on Facebook. The only thing I'll do is reels and things that I put on Instagram. I just allow it to repeat on Facebook, but otherwise I'm not very active there. So I'm always surprised to see that pop up. And once again, I use BackerKit launch for this campaign, as I always do. I'm usually pretty quiet on it. I do 2 to 3 emails. This time I stuck to just 2. We had a pretty decent open rate. It was consistent with the previous, with From Parts Unknown number 3. We had a little bit of a better click rate, though. However, it didn't bring nearly as much of the total funded amount in as it did the time before. I would credit a lot of that to those direct links, as a lot of that traffic seemed to just come direct one way or another. So again, is that a failure of the BackerKit launch referral code that it didn't capture it, or are people just finding it a different way? I'm totally unclear, but I think I'm going to continue using BackerKit launch from now on. And I know I've done so with Naked Kaiju Woman number 2, as I've already sent a couple launch emails, and I plan to do so right before the campaign ends as well to capture any of those people who haven't backed it quite yet. So I still always recommend BackerKit launch. It's a great way to get all of your previous backers notified and into your campaigns without having to pester them via messages or project updates. And now let's reflect on the campaign. I have some questions here ripped from the comics launch program. So let's go through those now. How do you feel now that the Kickstarter campaign is over? I feel great. I'm so happy with how this campaign went. I was a little bit down after From Parts Unknown 2 didn't perform and 3 did even worse behind that. So I was almost ready to just quit on this whole series, which is a shame. And it's really not fair to JP and Daniel, as they put a lot of good work into making this book what it was. I think doing a double issue at the end was actually one of the better ideas that I had, just kind of putting this out of its misery in one sense when I was thinking about doing it in the beginning, but also built a lot more hype and brought a lot more people in that probably wouldn't have joined if it was issue 4 of 5. It also, I think, as a storytelling mechanism, ends up making the book a lot more interesting, as now the whole book is just pure climax. So there is a midpoint cliffhanger in the book, but it feels appropriate. It doesn't feel like it's a stop and start. It just feels like the book continues to escalate and pays off in a way that I can't wait for all of you to check out. I think it really does pay off, and you'll be getting that book soon, so I hope you check it out. What was the best or high point of this campaign for you? Day one. The fact that we did better on day one than we did on the final day of the previous two campaigns means a lot. It was a kind of a vote of confidence saying, okay, like people were just waiting out this campaign. We're just waiting out to get to the end of the book to support it. And that made me feel a lot better. I felt like it wasn't that it was a bad idea or that it was poorly executed, at least in terms of putting the comic together. The campaign was a bit of a mistake in how I did those all too close together, but it made me feel a lot better. Okay, I'm not making a horrible mistake doing all these comics. If you caught me when From Parts Unknown #3 was out there, I was pretty down on myself about it. I was really reflecting and wondering if I was doing the right thing. I mean, I wasn't stopping. We were barreling forward with Naked Kaiju Woman 2 in the background. I had a couple other projects that we were working on getting started and are in full flight now. I'm not ready to share those yet, but they'll be out soon. I was definitely missing some confidence. So having that day one start really strong and really carry through right to the end where we were always adding backers day after day, I felt really good about it. So I was very happy with how this campaign went. What was the worst part or low point of this campaign for you? Honestly, I can't really think of one. It was a good campaign. I mean, there's those days where you lose backers, and that happens on almost every campaign where people will pledge and then a day later they cancel. Some people pledge and cancel immediately. Those don't really bother me because I almost don't see them. But, you never want to see the number going down. I'm not so worried about the total amount pledged either. Could use the money to recoup all of the money I've put in to recoup those costs that I've given the artists and the printers and the shipping and all that stuff. Look, I would like to break even on a lot of these campaigns, but the dollar amount doesn't bother me as much. So if somebody adjusts their pledge for whatever reason, and that happened quite a bit here where people would back the campaign and then see the project update with the secret rewards and take the discount. That didn't bother me at all. Absolutely, like you should do that. That's the smart thing to do. It was more when the backer count went down. It's that was almost like people just losing confidence in the campaign, or I don't know what it was, but that always hurt just a bit. So arguably that's the low point, but really the campaign as a whole was a great one. So I was happy with the whole thing. I didn't really dwell too much, and maybe it was just perspective after coming off of issue 3, where it felt like that entire campaign was a low point. So I felt a lot better with this one here. How are you different now that the campaign is over? I think I'm different in the sense that I am going to strategize how I do these series now going forward. I mentioned I have a couple other projects in the works now, and I'm really thinking about how to release these in such a way that it's going to make sense for the market. I'm going to make sure that they, one, have room to breathe, but also have a clear timeline and a clear path towards the end. If that means funding more than one issue before we ever do a Kickstarter for it, so that people can see, like, matter of fact, that this book will be coming out in a certain amount of time, then so be it. I'm definitely going to be putting just a lot more thought into how to do series. This was the first series I had done, although it's my 9th campaign with these 4 books. It's the first time I actually put a series together. The previous 3 comics I had done were all one-shots, so I didn't really know how to approach doing a series so much. I've learned quite a few things. I'll definitely do better the next time around, making sure that people, 1, are getting what they're asking for, and 2, that we're doing it in a way that makes sense for people to actually read and enjoy the books without making them wait forever. I still think that's a benefit of how we're doing indie comics relative to some folks, where it could take years for the second issue to come out. We're trying to tell you, like, this book will be coming out on a regular basis, almost to the level that you can expect from your LCS, but maybe a little bit slower to make sure that the book actually arrives in your hands, since we're not a brick and mortar, we're shipping it to your house. So you need some time to actually receive the book. Makes a lot of sense, but sometimes you got to go through things to figure it out. So definitely different on the other end of this campaign. What surprised you most about this campaign? What surprised me most was actually the fact that we had a lot of people coming back from issue 2 and beyond. I was really worried that, after the drop off of #1, people must have read it and just not been into it. The way the book was written as a serialized book, where issue 1 is really just, it's barely an act 1. I feel like people were deciding, I'm going to wait till the whole story is here, because they were getting pieces of the story, where Naked Kaiju Woman is episodic. The story has a beginning, middle, and end. This was just beginning. It was just in issue 1. Yes, there was a cliffhanger, but there wasn't much else to go on. So I was surprised that we had so many people coming back, because again, I was kind of down in the dumps for issues 2 and 3, thinking that I did something wrong in terms of storytelling, and that was what dropped people off. But it seemed to be that people were just waiting to get the whole book in their hands, which makes a lot of sense. So I don't know why I was surprised about it, but again, my mind space was in a different space after issue 3. So I think I'm in a much healthier place now. But at the time, I was just shocked, thinking, again, I was very down on myself. My confidence was low. So I was shocked to have the kind of support that I ended up having in the end. What's your biggest concern now that the campaign is over? Usually I'm much quicker on getting campaigns shipped out into backers, but with this one, I've had number of issues with all these tariff things. The tariffs have nothing to do with books. We're supposed to be CUSMA compliant or USMCA, wherever you're listening from. They're supposed to be compliant, meaning there's zero tariff on them. However, there's so much confusion and so many books being sent back at the border that the shipping companies that I'm using all have different methods of handling this, and some of them are charging up to 35% extra as a withholding tax almost, saying that, well, we don't know if we're going to have to pay the tariff on books, again, which are compliant and should be zero tariff, but I'm still forced to pay this 35% up front, and I'm told I may get the money back at some future date. So I'm still trying to navigate all that. These books would be out in the mail in normal times and just in people's hands by now. But because of stuff like that, like I'm very concerned about how these things are going to keep getting out there. My worst case scenario is I do send them out, I pay whatever the heck I'm going to pay, and then they get sent back at the border. I've already had some instances where things get sent back, but because they've already crossed the border, they end up at the depot over there and they refuse to ship them back over the border. So I'm just losing issues of the book that way. And I don't want that to happen with these. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on with shipping and all that. And honestly, yeah, that like easily, that is my biggest concern. All these changes and all the constant confusion with just getting things over the border. Like I'm just trying to sell comic books here, man. And it seems to be so complicated and so confusing. So I'm really hoping that that settles itself soon, but who knows? We'll have to see how that all plays out. What worked really well this campaign? The secret rewards. This was a feature that I didn't think I would use so much, but once I figured out a use for them, in this case, it was getting, readers from issue 2 that dropped off and issue 3 that dropped off and giving them special bundles that made sense for them, that they're not rebuying books. That worked really well. We had a lot of people come back from each of those campaigns, and I even had a lot of direct people reaching out and saying, thanks for including this. Like, I wanted to support you, but I didn't want to get duplicates. So I made it a lot easier for those people to jump on without feeling like they were going to have to spend extra just for the sake of supporting an indie. Like, I gave them something that made sense for what they were going for. So I think it worked really well. I think it's something I'm going to continue doing with other series, including Naked Kaiju Woman and anything else that I'm doing in the future. Again, I have other series to announce very soon. So I'll definitely be doing this kind of strategy. I think that's something I'll be recommending to people beyond myself because it worked out great. I am definitely going to be doing that again. How might you do it even better next time? So I think for this campaign, it went pretty well. I was able to get a lot of lapsed readers back. But one thing I did, I was focusing on the folks that had already read the first few. What I didn't do was the trying to get people in and on board. What I could have done is shared out issue 1 a lot more freely. I did put it on Global Comics, but again, you need Global Comics Gold to read that. So if you're that kind of person, maybe you're already checking out the campaign, or maybe you just wait for things to show up on Global Comics. I'm not big on putting all of these series on there because, to be completely honest, until they do an a la carte model, it's really not viable to put the series on there. Just for perspective, like we'd be getting pennies on the dollar for every read. I'm getting payouts of 8 cents and 12 cents Canadian. So it's just not something that is tenable for us to do long term. But for an issue 1, in order to get people in on the series, I think it made a lot of sense. But one thing I could have done was been a little more aggressive about getting that issue 1 out there and getting more people to read it so that they might jump on to the following issues. What did backers really seem to resonate with? So I went a little bit wider with the covers in this one, and that was part and parcel with me combining the 2 issues. I set up a lot of variant covers because I was going to do these as 2 separate issues, maybe 4 and 5. And then once I had decided to combine them, I already had these covers. So it ended up being 5 covers for this campaign, and people seem to really like that. The covers sold relatively evenly across. The main cover always does better just based on how it's included in bundles, and it's usually the cheaper option. But aside from that, the variant covers are pretty evenly spread. People seem to like all of them, and we tried to really go with very different styles for each one. So people were really into that. And yeah, I think I'm always going to be doing variant covers. I have my own thoughts about variant covers in the industry and all that. I don't love all this blind bag stuff that's happening. I could see how some people might like it, and it always makes me wonder, should I be doing something like that? But I feel like personally, I don't always love variant covers as a consumer, at least when I'm picking up my like floppies from the LCS. But when it comes to indie campaigns, I think it's a great way to get in touch with new artists that you might work with in the future. Like everyone I've worked with had done a variant cover for me previously. So it's a great way to expand my base and to meet new artists and to get some cool art for these indie comics that I wouldn't be able to get more people to draw these things otherwise. So getting other people's takes on these books, I really think is a great idea. So I'm kind of two minds when it comes to variant covers, but that's just me. What will you never do again? So I can't think of something with this campaign in particular, but I think I've been pretty clear. What I'm never going to do again is launch the series the way I did this time. So number 1 and number 2 had some breathing room. 2 and 3 were within a month of each other. That was way too soon. Before I got books out for number 2, I already launched number 3. And I even got a couple like angry notes saying like, what are you doing? I haven't even received issue 2. How could you expect me to support issue 3? And it's one of those things, like, until somebody said it to me, I don't know why it wasn't clear, and they said, I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, that makes no sense. I was just too caught up in the rapid release thing, and that's not always the best approach. So clearly, I learned that lesson, arguably the hard way, but here we are. I learned what I needed to learn. I think we're good. I think going forward, I'm going to be a little more thoughtful about how the campaign schedule goes and how the release schedule goes, but I'm always going to be super clear about when things are at least planned to come out. Maybe we'll run into hiccups here and there. I'm always very clear that even with the Substack and the YouTube videos and all that, that I may have a plan and I may change that plan, and that's just the way it is. But I'm usually pretty clear about, any changes that might come about. And with that, that's the post-mortem for From Parts Unknown number 4. So again, if you supported it, I really appreciate your support. And if you haven't, that's cool. But you should check out Naked Kaiju Woman number 2. It's live right now. It'll be live until October 3rd. So you got lots of time to jump in. And if that's not your style, we have Big Smoke Pulp Volume 2 coming out at the end of October. And same thing, I'm going to make the comics available on there. The bundles might be a little bit different on that one because I'm trying to split the comics from the books a little bit going forward, but you'll still be able to get all the comics on there. And as far as the next comics campaign goes, right now we're looking at February. I haven't announced what book that's going to be, but I've received almost all of the inked pages for that book. So once it's kind of in shape and colored and I have something more substantial to share with you, and I could say that book 1 is done and ready to be launched, I'll tell you exactly what it is. I have 4 different books in the works right now, 4 different comic books in the works right now, and then multiple books in the background as well. Those ones are very clear. I have Switch Restart coming out in January, and then the Backlit Babylon series coming out in April. That one is actually 3. Right now they're novellas. We'll see if I expand them. I like the novella so much more than the novel. This is a post in itself. I'll talk about that in the future. But even as a reader, I just like sticking with one character and going through one plot. I hate they go meet this person and have lunch with them and you get to learn about the character, but it doesn't really feed into the whole point of the novel. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make me a very literary sound person or something. I'm sure there's some bad thing about not wanting to read novels and just wanting to read novellas, but it is what it is. That's what I'm into. And that's what I think I am going to enjoy writing more anyway. But I'll have much more about those in the future. Right now, let's talk about From Parts Unknowns. It's really hard to separate From Parts Unknown number 4 from the entire series. It was my second best series to date, and that's not something to sniff at. It did really well. I can't complain too much about it, but it's hard to separate it from the lows of 2 and 3. And I know I keep repeating myself, and I'm not stressed about it anymore, but at the time, I was down. I was pretty upset about it. If anything, I'm very grateful for the support that I ended up receiving with number 4. Again, could it have done even better? Absolutely. Relative to how other campaigns go in general, in terms of backer count, Crazy Latte Thing Called Love had another 100 or so backers. So there's definitely people that I missed with this. I think, being pro wrestling kind of held it back a little bit. The vampire aspect, I think, keeps things popular, but the pro wrestling thing, I think, is very niche. Although there are people that are into it, and the people that are into it are really into it, there's a lot of people that just think it's silly. And it is. It absolutely is silly, and that's always the point I make. Pro wrestling is goofy, but it's fun. That's the idea. It originated in the circus. That should tell you everything you need to know. So I definitely went for that vibe with the book as well. So I hope the people that did get it do enjoy it for that reason. But I do understand that, yeah, I've definitely niched my market out a little bit. So where Crazy Latte Thing Called Love was a little more broad, it was like a romantic thriller. It was something that almost everyone could get into and enjoy. Plus Mattia's art was very eye-catching. Not to say that Daniel and JP's work is different here, but again, if you're not into wrestling and vampires, it's not going to catch your eye. Where there's a little more intrigue with Latte, I think, that people didn't know exactly what it was, so they're more into it. Where when you just tell them it's wrestling, out, right? Like some people are just not into wrestling. So I'm not surprised that the backer count was a little bit lower on this one in general, just based on the niche that it's in. I think with the projects I have going forward, appeal more to that broad base again. So without spoiling anything, it's just more like the noir stuff, the silly stuff. There's going to be a lot more of the broad appeal kind of works on here. I don't know that Kickstarter is going to be the best place for them. So another reason why I'm holding back. There's at least one project that is destined for publishers, as that's, I feel like, a more appropriate home for the type of story that it is. And again, I'll share all of this as I can in the future. But right now, just know that, yeah, there's at least one project that I think is more publisher friendly. And then the other two, I think, fit in the Kickstarter realm. But they definitely won't be like a Nika Kaiju Woman situation where it's built for Kickstarter. Like, this is looking at the market and it's written for the market. That was Nika Kaiju Woman. These two books that are being worked on now are kind of more, the stories I would like to tell. They could fit with publishers and they could go on Kickstarter. I'm leaning towards Kickstarter right now, as I have one book with the publishers, and I think that one is all the, begging I'm willing to do in terms of getting stories out. These other stories, I just want to get them to you and have you enjoy them without me having to go to a publisher and say, hey, can you make sure that people will see this one day? That's the fun of being an indie. You get to make that choice, right? Maybe I don't make it out to nearly as many people as I would if it were going through a publisher, but also that's fine for me right now. I'm happy to continue using Kickstarter as the way of distributing these books and hopefully getting the word out more and more. That said, having the cachet of saying, oh, I'm published with X definitely helps Kickstarter inversely as well, which is why I'm looking at kind of doing a hybrid model, at least with the comics for now. As far as novels and novellas go, those are definitely just going to be indie. I have zero interest in arguing whether novellas deserve space on a bookshelf at this point. I enjoy the format. I've been very clear about it. And again, this is probably something to go in a future post that'll go a lot more in depth with around that time when we're in literary season and I talk more about the books rather than the comics. For books, indie all the way. For comics, I think the hybrid approach is good. I think being able just to get into different rooms by being published is something that I'm aiming to do, but it's not my be all end all. I'm more than happy to just be on Kickstarter in the meantime. And really, I think the goal of everything I'm doing here is to be independent. So, like, what's the dream here? The dream would be to be like a Skybound type, a giant generator. I'm a huge fan of like everything Rick Remender's doing with that as well. And it's, if anything, that's closer to how I want to run things, where Giant Generator is Rick Remender. It's just all of his books with all the different artists he works with. And that's how I see Pesto Comics. I would love to have Pesto Comics distributed via Image. But it's all, they're Image books, but they're Pesto Comics books. And they're all books written by me. And I just have 4 or 5 books on the go at any given time. And I have different artists working on them. And I just keep generating content and keep generating books and stories and sharing them with you. So that's the dream. Like, I would love to get to that level. This would be the first step, getting a book with a publisher, proving that I can deliver something on time and complete and all that, and kind of building that base so that I can go to an Image or a Dark Horse or whomever in the future and say, this is the Pesto Comics catalog. Here's all the books I have planned. Here's all the artists I'm working with. And here's what I plan to do to distribute them. Doesn't mean I'm going to leave Kickstarter entirely. I think I'm always going to have something on Kickstarter. It may just be the NSFW stuff that doesn't fit on shelves. It may be that the more quirky things end up on Kickstarter, and then the more mainstream stuff goes to publishers. I don't know. This is all pie in the sky right now because nobody said yes to me yet. So in the meantime, Kickstarter is the one that says yes to me, and that's where most stuff's going to end up. So I'm happy to do that. I love launching these campaigns. They should be stressful. They should be the part of the job that I don't like because I should just be enjoying the writing. and the lettering, because I really do enjoy lettering as well. But frankly, I enjoy all of it. It's a lot of fun, and this is part of it too, is getting to speak to you and letting you know everything that's going on, having the data and being able to go through it and really reviewing what I did wrong and how I could go better. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you got something out of this post-mortem. We're going to do it again with Naked Kaiju Woman 2 very soon. But for now, I want to thank you for being here, for watching, for listening, however you're consuming this. I really appreciate your time. It means a ton, as always. We'll talk again next Wednesday as we talk about crowdfunding. We're going to talk about the 3 phases of crowdfunding and why you can't skip any of them. So if you're interested in launching a campaign yourself, this is going to be vital. And if you're just interested in how it all breaks down and my approach to things, it'll be a good episode as well. And of course, if you're a paid subscriber, I'm kind of changing the way I'm doing those posts because I think having just the 2-minute preview on the Saturdays isn't enough. So instead, what I'm doing is I've just made the whole thing longer. So there's a big section for paid subscribers, and there's an even bigger section for free subscribers. So this Saturday, we're going to talk about NSFW books and whether you need to do them and my approach to them and why I've done Naked Kaiju Woman and why it seems to be doing well. So we're going to talk about that on Saturday. And it'll be worth your while. As far as the video and the audio goes, it's about 8 minutes of content. So it's a full video on its own. And if you're a paid subscriber, you get 1.5 times that amount of content as we keep talking about it beyond the paywall. So it'll be a lot more interesting for everyone involved. But if you want to join as a paid subscriber, it helps a ton. I always say that I keep the prices as low as Substack will allow me, but it does help a ton if you want to help out and be a paid subscriber. It's a very low cost, so by all means, please check that out. You find that at pestocomics.substack.com. And as always, you can find me on all the socials at Pesto Comics or at pestocomics.com, and that'll lead you to everything else. And as always, I want to thank you for being here. We'll talk again next time. Have a good one.